starting with 1 million luck points. Chapter 411, Reason. With that, they were all dumbfounded. Everyone was stunned. An alien? Was this a freaking movie? Where did this alien come from? Everyone else was shocked. However, Zhou Hao was not. Thanks to the Heaven Dao software, he already knew that aliens existed. Zhou Hao's planet Earth belonged to Universe 7. However, there were also other universes that had life. Even his 1,000 feather armor was not something from Universe 7. Although Zhou Hao knew that there were aliens, he was still shocked when he heard Zhou Kangdao say this. That was because this meant that the aliens had already arrived on planet Earth. This was not a good thing. Although Zhou Hao did not know what the aliens were like, he knew that those people were definitely not weak. If they really knew about planet Earth, they would inevitably invade. As Zhou Hao was thinking about this, Su Ling and the others widened their eyes in disbelief. Didn't all the aliens appear in movies? Why would they appear in the real world? Senior Zhou, you're not fooling us juniors, are you? How are we supposed to believe this? At this moment, Yuan Cheng could not help but say. His face was filled with disbelief. How could there be aliens in this world? I know you don't believe me. To be honest, I don't believe it either. However, I've seen it with my own eyes, so I have to believe it. What I saw was a civilization that's different from ours. As Zhou Kangdao spoke, he became even more mysterious. He had actually seen this alien before. Senior, can you tell us in detail? Zhou Hao hurriedly asked. He was very anxious to let the other party talk more about this because he did not want Su Ling and the others to be suspicious of this matter. After all, he really believed that it was true. Although Su Ling and the others did not believe it, they still wanted to hear what Zhou Kangdao had to say. It's a long story. I don't know when it happened, but I do know that the Red Cliff Abyss was originally a desert. It was only after that aliens arrived that it became what it is now. I think the humans and foreign races on planet Earth should know about this. As for why it has maintained its current state, I don't know either. I've seen him before, 3 years ago. Actually, I wasn't the one who looked for him. Instead, he took the initiative to look for me. I didn't see his appearance clearly and only saw a white light appear in front of me and talk to me. Zhou Kangdao took a deep breath, as if this matter still made him somewhat afraid. What did he say? Zhou Hao hurriedly asked. He said that he needed energy to recover himself. He said that if I could help him, he would give me a huge opportunity. I was very afraid at that time. Moreover, he was really very powerful and directly imprisoned me, making me unable to move at all. At that moment, as a supernatural expert, I felt that he could instantly kill me, so I agreed. He asked me to help him collect some special treasures and asked me to hand it to him. I had no other choice but to oblige. However, something happened half a year ago. As Zhou Kangdao spoke, he took out a crystal. This crystal was very strange. It was completely black, but it emitted a strange aura. Zhou Hao looked over and could not tell what it was. This crystal can only be nurtured in the Red Cliff Abyss. Moreover, the method to nurture it is extremely cruel. It requires the blood essence power of a living person to catalyze it. He handed this to me and asked me to sacrifice a living person to nurture it. I originally did not want to do this, but he forced me to do so. Therefore, I could only secretly do this. However, the problem is that at some point, that alien got more and more people working for him. According to what I know, there are many others in the Red Cliff Abyss that also serve him secretly. Although they hide very deeply, the aura of this crystal is very unique and I am still able to sense it. And I've sensed more than one crystal. Originally, I did not think much of it. It was only when my son was in charge of sending this crystal to the depths of the Red Cliff Abyss that he obtained a strange energy body. My son absorbed it every day and his cultivation increased greatly. Originally, his talent was not good and he had stayed at the master level for a few years. However, after absorbing that crystal, he broke through to the Grandmaster level. A year later, he even broke through to the supernatural level and even reached the 4th grade. However, for some reason, this matter was discovered by the other factions in the Red Cliff Abyss. After this, they even announced to the public that the auction house had obtained a precious treasure that could help people cultivate. They told everyone that my son Jokong was able to jump from a master to a supernatural expert in just a few years thanks to this treasure. At this point, Zhou Kangdao did not continue, but Zhou Hao and the others understood. These people had made some deals with that alien and helped him replenish his energy. As a reward, Jokong was given a mysterious energy spirit body. Absorbing this item could increase one's cultivation. In just a few years, Jokong had become a supernatural expert. This matter naturally couldn't escape the eyes of many people. Moreover, they were all loyal to that alien and were naturally envious of this treasure. As for Zhou Kang's death in the end, Zhou Kangdao also suspected that it was done by someone else. I don't know who learned of this news or who spread the news. In short, many people asked our auction house to auction that treasure. I've always suppressed this matter, but who knew that my son would actually die like this? Therefore, I suspect that they killed my son to obtain that energy body. After listening to what Zhou Kangdao said, Zhou Hao also found his analysis to be very reasonable. Of course, this was only a coincidence. Thankfully, because of this, Zhou Hao and the others' suspicions were weakened. In fact, they were basically believed to be innocent. If Zhou Kangdao knew that the person who had killed his son was actually Zhou Hao, he would probably be very surprised. In that case, it would mean that they do have a motive for Zhou Kang's death. Yin Feng hurriedly said. His suspicions had been cleared. This was the best. Is that energy body still there? Zhou Hao asked at this moment. He was very curious what that energy body was. Not anymore. My son has never left his side, but we've checked his body. That thing is indeed gone. Zhou Kangdao said. Zhou Hao's expression changed slightly. He was the one who killed Jokong, but who took the energy body? Zhou Hao did not know, but he thought of a serious problem. That was, no matter who did it, it would all happen after he killed Jokong. In other words, someone must have been present when he killed Jokong. Chapter 412, Intelligent Entity. Thinking of this, Zhou Hao felt his blood run cold. In other words, someone must have seen him kill Jokong. Moreover, this person had taken the energy body from Jokong after he left. That must be it. Zhou Hao did not know who it was. He originally thought that he was the mastermind, but now that he heard Zhou Kangdao say this, Zhou Hao suddenly felt that something was wrong. Or rather, there were also many people who had the same idea as him that night. However, since he had already killed Jokong, all they did was take away the energy body. But who was this person? Zhou Hao was somewhat puzzled. There were not many people who could kill a 4th grade supernatural expert. They had to be at least at the 6th grade. In the entire Red Cliff Abyss, there were probably not many people who could reach the 6th grade and above. Senior Zhou, since you've analyzed so much, you should be able to figure out who killed Boss Zhou, right? Zhou Hao asked this to find out how many 6th grade supernatural experts there were in the Red Cliff Abyss. Perhaps the culprit was already at the quasi-heaven realm or even heaven realm. After saying this, Zhou Kangdao snorted. The people from the mercenary group, the weapon company, and even the brilliant club all have this strength. They must be envious of my Zhou family's energy body, that's why they attacked. If they were able to kill my son so quickly, the other party must have been very powerful. However, I'm afraid there's not a single person in the Red Cliff Abyss that is capable of that. Therefore, I think they should be working together. Zhou Kangdao's analysis made sense. It would indeed take some time for a 6th grade supernatural expert to kill a 4th grade supernatural expert. It would definitely not be instantaneous. Senior Zhou, if that's the case, what do you plan to do? Zhou Hao suddenly asked. He was somewhat worried that Zhou Kangdao might find that alien and pay a price to obtain the strength to kill a 6th-grade supernatural expert. This was not the key. The key was that this alien seemed to be somewhat strange. It could increase a martial artist's cultivation and could even create a supernatural expert in a few years. Zhou Hao suddenly felt a sense of danger. From the looks of it, the civilizations in outer space were definitely much stronger than the civilizations on planet Earth. In this way, would there be a day when aliens invaded planet Earth like in the movies? No one could guarantee this. Even Zhou Hao was not certain. Humph, of course I'm going to take revenge. Zhou Kangdao immediately said. After saying this, Zhou Hao knew that his guess was right. With Zhou Kangdao's ability, he was unable to resist those few families on his own. He could only place his hopes on that alien. In that case, Senior Zhou, we won't disturb you any longer. Zhou Hao did not want to stay any longer. Moreover, he did not want to bring Su Ling and the others to see that alien. That alien must be very powerful. If anything happened, he was not confident he could keep them safe. Commander Zhou, after listening to everything I said, don't you want to take a look? Zhou Kangdao asked directly. Moreover, you're the commander of the 100 City. Didn't the Green Cloud Division send you here to investigate this matter? Zhou Kangdao narrowed his eyes and said directly. Zhou Hao shook his head. Senior Zhou, you're overestimating us. With our Grand Master level cultivation, how could we deal with such an existence? Moreover, I think we should avoid such an existence, don't you think so? Moreover, since the Green Cloud Division knows about this, there's even less of a need for me to take action, right? Zhou Kangdao nodded at Zhou Hao's words. He was also trying to test Zhou Hao and the others. However, seeing that Zhou Hao was so indifferent, he also heaved a sigh of relief. He was only worried about the Green Cloud Division now. Other than that, he was not worried about anything else. Zhou Hao left with Su Ling and the others. On the way, Su Ling and the others could not help but discuss. There's really aliens. Heavens, I thought they only exist in fantasy novels. TCH, even our planet Earth has undergone a mutation that allowed all species to cultivate. To be honest, I'm not too surprised to hear about aliens. Even so, should we pretend not to know about this? Zhou Hao, what do you think we should do? They discussed among themselves before finally looking at Zhou Hao. Zhou Hao frowned and could not help but say, this I really don't know. But no matter what, it's not good for us to interfere. After all, this alien has some ability. If we go, we'll either be threatened or in danger. It's better for us not to go. This was Zhou Hao's opinion. However, Zhou Hao still planned to investigate alone. What was this thing? Was it a threat to humans? If it was, Zhou Hao would kill him. Of course, that was only if he had the ability to kill him. After returning to the commander residence, Zhou Hao took advantage of the fact that it was late at night and went to the auction house. He knew that Zhou Kangdao might make a move tonight. Indeed, when he arrived near the auction house, he saw Zhou Kangdao speeding towards the depths of the Red Cliff Abyss. Zhou Hao also hurriedly followed. As a quasi-heaven realm expert, it was still easy for Zhou Hao, who had the strength to fight a heaven realm expert, to not be detected by Zhou Kangdao. He followed behind Zhou Kangdao and quickly arrived at the Great Desert in the Red Cliff Abyss. The two of them rushed over quickly. Soon, Zhou Hao saw Zhou Kangdao land in front of a huge cliff. There was a cave here. Zhou Kangdao did not hesitate and walked in. Zhou Hao did not enter rashly. He was wearing silver armor and communicated with Little Yu. Little Yu, can you detect any special fluctuations inside? The 1000-feather armor had many subsidiary functions and could detect many things. Reporting to Master, Little Yu did not detect any life forms. Instead, I have detected an intelligent entity. Little Yu's words stunned Zhou Hao for a moment. Intelligent entity? What is that? It's similar to an artificial intelligence system. However, an artificial intelligence system is under the control of humans. Humans input commands and it does things according to the orders of humans. However, intelligent entities have their own consciousness. In other words, they are alive. Hearing this, Zhou Hao was somewhat shocked. You're saying that the thing inside is not a human but the artifact spirit of a system. You can also understand it that way. Moreover, I detected that this intelligent entity is in a tired state and can't use much energy. Just like the 1000-feather armor, it's also in the process of recovery. Little Yu's words made Zhou Hao feel much more relieved. As long as this thing was damaged, everything would be fine. Do we have a chance to defeat him? Zhou Hao could not help but ask. This was the key question. Chapter 413, Devour. Zhou Hao had to be confident that he could resolve the other party before entering. If he couldn't resolve the other party, wouldn't he be courting death? Therefore, he wanted Little Yu to test the strength of the intelligent entity here. The intelligent entity does not have absolute strength. They usually rely on machines or treasures to attack. According to my assessment, the intelligent entity here is severely injured and we should be able to devour it. When Zhou Hao heard this, he was immediately stunned. Devour it? What do you mean? It's an intelligent entity, and I'm also an intelligent entity. An intelligent entity is like artificial intelligence and the data of your world. I can devour it as a nutrient, and it can also devour me as its nutrient. If I can absorb it, I will become even stronger and can even control the machines or treasures it controls. Little Yu's voice sounded. When Zhou Hao heard this, he immediately understood. Apparently, the two of them were both intelligent entities and could absorb each other. He quickly understood. In that case, why don't we absorb it? Zhou Hao said directly. This intelligent entity's level is not low either. Although it was inferior to me in its peak state, it can still be considered a cosmic-level intelligent entity. It might be a little troublesome to absorb, but I'm still confident that I can devour it. Since Little Yu was confident, Zhou Hao was relieved. Moreover, he was still around and could provide a lot of help. Alright, let's wait for Zhou King to come out before entering. Zhou Hao said directly. After saying this, he waited silently. Not long after, Zhou Hao saw Zhou Kangdao walk out with an ugly expression. He did not stay long and left directly. After he left, Zhou directly hid his aura and sneaked in. As soon as he entered the cave, Zhou Hao felt a strange feeling. This feeling was very unfamiliar and difficult to describe. Moreover, this cave was also very strange. It did not seem to be formed naturally at all, but seemed to have been created by someone. Zhou Hao was very nervous as he slowly walked in because he still did not fully understand this intelligent entity. Little Yu, did you detect it? Where is it? Zhou Hao asked directly. Yes, Master. I'll draw a map for you. I marked down its location. After saying this, a simple map was displayed to Zhou Hao mentally. On this map, there was a red dot where the energy body was. However, at this moment, Zhou Hao sensed a killing intent around him. Then, he saw the walls of this cave move. Several armor that looked like the armor of the machine race appeared. They were holding long sabers in their hands, and their auras were around the 6th grade supernatural level. Zhou Hao was somewhat shocked to see so much mechanical armor condensing in an instant. Master, it has already discovered us. We can only rely on brute force to enter. Zhou Hao could sense it even without Little Yu saying anything. Zhou Hao took out the black dragon spear and was filled with lightning. At the same time, he used the god-slaying art and the 9 revolutions overlord body art. In an instant, his aura rumbled and became powerful as he rushed in. Although these mechanical bodies were powerful, they were still not Zhou Hao's match. He killed them one by one. After all, with the support of the god-slaying and the 9 revolutions overlord body art, Zhou Hao's current combat strength was not inferior to a first-grade Heaven Realm expert. These mechanical bodies were naturally unable to resist Zhou Hao's attack. Zhou Hao directly killed his way out. At this moment, the ground trembled as if something was about to fly out. "Master, it wants to escape," Little Yu hurriedly said. "Run? Humph, do you think you can escape?" Zhou Hao immediately used the Golden Crow escape technique and instantly approached the red dot. However, a metal wall appeared in front of him, looking extremely thick. Not only that, but the surrounding walls also slowly squirmed, and countless laser guns appeared. These laser guns were different from the laser guns used by humans. They seemed to be more destructive. "Master, this is the laser gun of the Reynolds-Dacre race. It's very powerful and can break through the defense of a Heaven Realm expert. You have to be careful." At this moment, Little Yu hurriedly spoke. Needless to say, Zhou Hao also felt the cold aura emitted from it. Zhou Hao's figure changed as the laser guns began to sweep out, but they were unable to approach Zhou Hao at all. In the end, the other party was only a mechanical body. Moreover, since it was already damaged, it was unable to deal with Zhou Hao at all. With the protection of the 1,000 feather armor, even if Zhou Hao was hit, he would also not be hurt. As he approached the metal wall, Zhou Hao also used his powerful cultivation. The Black Dragon Spear condensed endless strength and smashed fiercely towards the metal wall. Immediately, the wall trembled and a huge hole was blasted open. Here, Zhou Hao saw a place that looked like a mechanical warehouse. On it were strange equipment. A huge ball of light was sitting in the center. At this moment, the ball of light was connected to countless metal wires around it. It was very strange. The moment Zhou Hao saw this ball of light, the ball of light naturally saw him and shouted angrily. "Lowly human, you actually dare to invade my netherworld fighter. You're courting death." Zhou Hao did not speak. The 1,000 feather armor directly turned into feathers and pierced into the ball of light. Zhou Hao could also see a faint red light leaving the 1,000 feather armor and entering the ball of light. "You're just a piece of incomplete armor. How dare you devour me? I'll devour you!" The ball of light roared angrily, its voice very cold. "Master, it's very powerful. I need your help. This is its energy source. Cut off its energy source and I'll be able to devour it." A second red dot appeared in Zhou Hao's mind. It was right below this huge ball of light. The situation was urgent. Zhou Hao did not waste his breath and directly exploded with a powerful fluctuation from the Black Dragon Spear, smashing it fiercely onto the ground. Immediately, a huge hole was punched in the ground by Zhou Hao. He also jumped down. There was a huge pit underground that emitted a strange light. There were many black rocks that flickered with dark light. At this moment, Zhou Hao's expression changed. This was because he saw more than 100 people. These were all martial artists. Other than humans, there were also foreign races. They were all tied up here. A tube that connected to their dantians and hearts were inserted in their bodies. One was to extract their energy, and the other was to provide them with the nutrients they needed to prevent them from dying. This method was really detestable. Zhou Hao was furious. Many of these people were already dead. Even if they were not dead, they would not live for long. Zhou Hao used the Shadow 7 sabers and directly cut off all the tubes on their bodies. These people fell and were unconscious. As Zhou Hao cut off these tubes, he heard the unwilling roar of the ball of light. "No, why would such a high-level intelligent entity like you exist on this inferior planet? You're an ancient energy body from the Great Destruction era. You are." Chapter 414, Combat Strength Level. After the voice sounded, Zhou Hao felt the surrounding aura weaken. The entire space seemed to have instantly died. Zhou Hao was somewhat nervous and immediately called out to Little Yu. "Little Yu, how is it?" Zhou Hao was somewhat worried. Even if he could not get rid of this energy body, Zhou Hao did not want Little Yu to disappear. At this moment, Little Yu's voice sounded. Master, I've already controlled it and am currently absorbing it. This will probably take a while. I might also fall into a deep sleep and at the same time, I'll seal this space first. In the meantime, you can still use the 1000 feather armor. However, I won't be around to help you, I've already unlocked the authority for all the general functions. You can use them at any time. I might need a few months. I'll let you know after I wake up. Little Yu's voice was somewhat weak. Zhou Hao took a deep breath and could only nod before leaving with the 1000 feather armor. Little Yu's intelligent entity was separated from the 1000 feather armor. As long as it devoured this ball of light, it would return. Zhou Hao did not think too much and left directly. Zhou Hao did not plan to tell anyone about the Red Cliff Abyss. The reason why he did not tell his companions was because he was worried that they would think too much. On the other hand, he also did not plan to tell the other human experts. After all, humans only appeared to be united on the surface. Therefore, Zhou Hao decided that he wouldn't tell anyone. After returning to the commander residence, Zhou Hao did not idle. He continued to train daily. Perhaps it was because they were now safe in the 100 City, Su Ling and the others also had a lot of time to cultivate. Zhou Hao could sense that the few of them were cultivating in the Green Cloud Division's regional network. He could sense that they were using the training tower. Zhou Hao could always see Yuan Cheng and the others enter there to cultivate. They were already at the Grand Master level and would probably break through to the supernatural level before long. Among them, the fastest to break through to the supernatural level was still Su Ling. She had already reached the peak of the Grand Master level for a long time. However, she had not been in a hurry to break through. This made Zhou Hao very puzzled. He even secretly gave Su Ling the rare level energy bar and the incomplete comprehension scroll. Logically speaking, Su Ling should have broken through by now. Zhou Hao did not think much of it. At this moment, he lay in his room and opened the Heaven Dao software. As soon as he entered the Heaven Dao software, countless people tagged Zhou Hao. Big shot, you're here. And I'm just an ordinary person. The big shot is here. We worship him. I wonder if the big shot is planning to open the mystery box today or dominate the live stream room. No matter where the big shot goes, he will definitely cause a huge commotion in the Heaven Dao software. After all, he's the first person to unlock the shop. Zhou Hao smiled when he saw them typing on the public chat. He had not visited Fairy Yu Ling's live stream for a long time. He directly went to Fairy Yu Ling's live stream. During this period of time, Fairy Yu Ling was still live streaming, but she did not see Zhou Hao. She was actually somewhat disappointed. She wanted to contact him, but she did not dare to. Only she knew the reason. Even Zhou Hao did not understand. At this moment, Zhou Hao entered the live stream and everyone cheered. Fairy Yu Ling, the big shot is here to help you break the rankings again. That's right. Shouldn't we dance today to celebrate? With the big shot making a move, there will definitely be a storm. Let's wait and see. These people began to flood Fairy Yu Ling's live stream, making her expression change. Before Zhou Hao could say anything, Fairy Yu Ling hurriedly said. Fans, I'm really sorry. I still have something to do here. I'll go offline first. After Fairy Yu Ling finished speaking, she directly closed the live stream. The screen also darkened. What's going on? Why did Fairy Yu Ling leave? The big shot just arrived. Why did he leave? Could it be that Fairy Yu Ling and the big shot have something fishy going on? He, that must be the case. Otherwise, why would Fairy Yu Ling leave as soon as the big shot arrived? There's something fishy going on. Big shot, what did you do to Fairy Yu Ling? And I'm just an ordinary person. Did he confess his love to her and get rejected? The live stream audience began to speculate. Zhou Hao frowned and did not understand the situation. Ever since he said that he wanted to obtain the god-slaying art last time, there had been no news of Fairy Yu Ling. This made Zhou Hao very puzzled. He was certain that Fairy Yuling definitely knew what the god-slaying art was. However, since she did not say anything, Zhou Hao did not ask. After leaving the live stream room, Zhou Hao looked at his pitiful amount of Heaven Dao coins and luck points and sighed. He had not killed any mutated beasts recently, so his Heaven Dao coins and luck points had decreased by a lot. This made Zhou Hao extremely depressed. Fortunately, he had a lot of essence energy ancestral stones. It was enough for him to temper his body at the quasi-heaven realm. Zhou Hao could also cultivate the 9 revolutions overlord body art to a certain extent. Zhou Hao had already cultivated to the 3rd revolution and had consumed a lot of essence energy ancestral stones. This had also allowed his body to become much stronger. Zhou Hao felt that although his current physical strength was not comparable to the 1000 feather armor, it was not much different. Even without the 1000 feather armor, he would still be able to fight a first-grade heaven realm expert. Thinking of this, Zhou Hao continued to cultivate. His cultivation had already reached the peak of the quasi-heaven realm for a long time. Moreover, he had also completed 40% of his body tempering. There was still 60% left before his body reached the upper limit of cultivators. With 9 revolutions overlord body art, he could multiply the limit of his physical body by 9 times. There was also the god-slaying art that increased his combat strength by nearly 3 times. Therefore, his combat strength was 12 times the limit of an ordinary cultivator. To put it simply, his quasi-heaven realm combat strength was 12 times that of an ordinary quasi-heaven realm expert. A first-grade heaven realm expert's combat strength was 10 times that of an ordinary quasi-heaven realm expert. Therefore, it was also considered normal for him to be able to fight a heaven realm expert. Putting special cultivation techniques and weapons aside, a second-grade heaven realm expert could also unleash twice the combat strength of a grade 1 heaven realm expert. Thus, a second-grade heaven realm expert was 20 times stronger than a quasi-heaven realm expert. Such combat strength was really terrifying. I wonder if the perfected 9 revolutions overlord body art and god-slaying art will still be able to multiply my strength by so many times after I reach the heaven realm. Despite wondering, he knew that this was impossible. After all, after the heaven realm, there was a huge difference between every level. Zhou Hao felt that he would be satisfied as long as he could triple the strength of an ordinary first-grade heaven realm expert when he reached the heaven realm. After all, if his strength was still multiplied in the same way, wouldn't his combat strength be equivalent to the peak of the heaven realm the moment he entered the heaven realm? This kind of thing was not possible at all. If that was the case, then such a cultivation technique was really too heaven-defying. It would also be unfair to others. As Zhou Hao was thinking about these questions, he suddenly heard footsteps and Su Ling's voice sounded. "Zhou Hao, are you asleep?" Chapter 415, Path. Zhou Hao was stunned for a moment, not knowing why Su Ling was here so late at night. However, it was already so late. Su Ling must have come to find him for a serious matter. After all, everyone was around during the day. Su Ling must have visited him this late because she had something to say. Zhou Hao was very curious about what Su Ling wanted, so he hurriedly opened the door. "It's already so late. Why haven't you slept yet?" Zhou Hao opened the door and smiled when he saw Su Ling. However, he did not notice a trace of worry flash in Su Ling's eyes. "Aren't you still awake? Why are you talking about me?" Su Ling rolled her eyes at Zhou Hao and couldn't be bothered to say anything else. She walked into the room and sat on the sofa. Zhou Hao touched his nose and looked at Su Ling. Could something exciting happen tonight? If that was the case, he was still not prepared. Of course, this was all Zhou Hao's wild guess. Su Ling was very shy and reserved when it came to these things. However, perhaps the crazier Yunyan would be capable of something like this. "Let me pour you a cup of tea." Zhou Hao smiled and immediately opened the tea set. He brewed a cup of tea and brought it to Su Ling. Su Ling took a sip of tea, her eyes somewhat absent-minded. She did not speak and just sat there, making Zhou Hao stunned. He couldn't help but sit over and look at Su Ling. He asked curiously, "What's wrong, Su Ling? What's bothering you?" At this moment, Zhou Hao finally realized that Su Ling was acting weird. However, he still couldn't tell what was wrong. He kept feeling that Su Ling had something to say. I have something to tell you, but I don't know how to say it." Su Ling sighed, her expression carrying a little sadness, making Zhou Hao stunned. "Just say what's on your mind. Is there anything you and I can't say?" Is it?" Zhou Hao deliberately blinked to make Su Ling happy. After all, every time he acted stupid, Su Ling would smile and lecture him. He thought that he could cheer Su Ling up in the same way today. However, Su Ling was unmoved, her eyes filled with loneliness. Only then did Zhou Hao realize that something must have happened. Otherwise, Su Ling wouldn't be like this. "Su Ling, what's wrong? Are you feeling unwell? Or is there a problem with your cultivation?" Zhou Hao was very worried. He finally felt that something was wrong and could not help but regret his carelessness. He had been negligent and even failed at noticing Su Ling's emotions. As someone who was pursuing Su Ling, he felt that he shouldn't have been so negligent. "No, my cultivation is going well. I am progressing very quickly, and I haven't even finished absorbing the energy bar you gave me." Su Ling shook her head and said. After saying this, Zhou Hao became even more worried. He subconsciously grabbed Su Ling's hand and said anxiously, "Su Ling, what's wrong? Tell me quickly, or I'll be worried to death." Su Ling's face immediately turned red when her delicate hand was grabbed. She wondered when this bastard had learned to be touchy. However, she did not retract her hand and let Zhou Hao hold it. "I'm about to break through to the supernatural level." After saying this, Zhou Hao was a little puzzled. Breaking through to the supernatural level was a good thing. Why was she so worried? Breaking through to the supernatural level was the dream of countless martial artists. Many people wanted to break through but were unable to do so. Now that Su Ling had the chance to break through to the supernatural level, why was she still worried? From the looks of it, she seemed to be somewhat unwilling. "Su Ling, this is a good thing. Aren't we martial artists cultivating to break through our shackles time and time again? I'm really happy for you for being able to break through to the supernatural level. Oh, could it be that you're thinking that I'll be left behind after you break through to the supernatural level?" To tell you the truth, I'm also going to break through to the supernatural level." Zhou Hao thought that Su Ling was worried about this, so he tried to comfort her. He thought that Su Ling would hurt his pride by breaking through. However, it had to be said that Zhou Hao was still young and could not tell what a girl was thinking. He was simply clueless. Su Ling looked at Zhou Hao and smiled. "Oh, you're about to break through too? That's good, but what?" Zhou Hao was stunned. "It's just not enough, Zhou Hao. I don't know what you're thinking, but I want to tell you what I think. I really like you and want to be with you. I originally thought that I could change my fate myself, but I'm afraid I can't." Su Ling's sudden words stunned Zhou Hao for a moment. The first few words made Zhou Hao extremely excited, but the last sentence suddenly stunned Zhou Hao on the spot. What did she mean by that? Could it be that even if she liked him and he liked her, they still couldn't be together? "Su Ling, what happened? Tell me, I'll bear the consequences with you." Zhou Hao hurriedly said, his expression anxious. "Zhou Hao, do you know what it means to be a supernatural expert?" Su Ling suddenly asked. Zhou Hao still did not know what a supernatural expert meant. Didn't it just mean that one's cultivation level would be increased? "This I'm really not sure," Zhou Hao could not help but ask. "By becoming a supernatural expert, it means that I have to leave behind my student status and depart from the team. I will need my own space to develop. If we continue to stay in the Green Cloud division, we will have two choices after we become supernatural experts. The first is to rush to the front line. The Green Cloud division is mainly in charge of the 7 spatial rifts. Supernatural experts will guard the spatial rifts. Even if they can't reach the front line, they have to stay in the fortress at the front line to prevent the foreign races from invading. The second way is to stay behind. The front line is filled with danger, but ordinary cities in the various continents also have to be guarded. Since we belong to the Jiangnan area, if we become supernatural experts, we might also be stationed in the Jiangnan area. It's likely that we'll become a special patrol envoy and be responsible for guarding the entire area. Hearing this, Zhou Hao finally understood. He originally thought that all the supernatural experts were supposed to go to the front line. Apparently, other than the first choice, there was still a second choice. However, after hearing Su Ling's words, Zhou Hao also realized a problem. If Su Ling said this, it was likely that she was considering the second choice. Zhou Hao frowned. If the second option was to guard the Jiangnan area, wouldn't that mean that she would be separated from him? Of course, strictly speaking, they don't need to be separated. It was just that the distance was a little far. However, clearly, Su Ling was not simply bothered by the distance. After all, he believed that their relationship would not be affected just because one was in the Jiangnan area and the other was at the front line. Then why was she concerned? Zhou Hao hurriedly said, "Su Ling, what's going on? I still don't understand." Chapter 416, Desire. Zhou Hao was puzzled, not understanding what Su Ling meant. If it was because the two places were far apart, it would not be a problem at all. Although one could not casually return to the city after becoming a supernatural expert, there was still a chance. It was not like they could not see each other. Zhou Hao did not understand what Su Ling meant, so he was very anxious. Su Ling sighed and said with a sad expression, "What I want to say is that I've already reached the supernatural level. Moreover, I'm also 18 years old. Perhaps the family will arrange a marriage for me." Su Ling's words directly made Zhou Hao's expression change drastically. This was something he could not tolerate and could not accept. How could the Su family arrange a marriage for Su Ling? As a supernatural expert, can't you? Zhou Hao was very surprised. After becoming a supernatural expert, could she not control her own fate? Although supernatural experts are very powerful, supernatural experts are nothing to those large families. They could call on supernatural experts to help them at any time. Some larger families could even get 12th grade Heaven Realm experts to help them. That's the sort of power they have. When martial artists go into battle to kill the enemies, they still need commanders behind them. Most of these commanders are not martial artists. After all, there are still very few martial artists. There are more ordinary people. And to put it bluntly, the people from those large family clans don't care about martial artists at all. In their eyes, if they sit in the office and casually issue a document, these martial artists will run around. Moreover, since fighting the foreign races is very dangerous, the large family clans don't arrange for too many family descendants to enter the martial artist world. Of course, they still have some top-notch martial artists who have absolute authority in the alliance in order to stabilize the authority of the family. To put it bluntly, a high-level martial artist can bring supreme glory to a large family. These large families will secretly nurture martial artists, but they won't let all the descendants of the family enter the martial artist world because they know how dangerous it is to become a martial artist. Therefore, instead of going into battle to kill the enemies, it's better for them to do some security work at the back. Despite not fighting in the front lines, their status and identity are also not inferior to martial artists. This is what the big families think. At this point, Su Ling's expression seemed lonely. Most importantly, the descendants of those large family clans usually prefer to marry female martial artists. This is because once they marry into their family, not only will they be able to reproduce, but they will also be able to protect their husbands. To put it bluntly, these families are not just looking for women that have the ability to bear children, but they're also looking for someone who's able to be a nanny and a bodyguard. As Su Ling spoke, Zhou Hao immediately clenched his fists. Was this the path meant for female martial artists? This was too tragic. I'm only saying that a small number of female martial artists will be like this. The majority of them will still rush to the front line and do what they like to do. But I'm from the Su family, I'm afraid I can't. At this point, Zhou Hao completely understood. The Su family was one of the big families of the Green Cloud Division. Zhou Hao was not a newbie. The Su family was one of the 12 families in the Green Cloud Division and had a lot of authority. This was because a super expert in the Green Cloud Division was from the Su family and was rumored to have reached the 12th grade heaven realm or even higher. Therefore, the Su family became a powerful family in the Green Cloud Division. Moreover, Su Ling's family was a small branch of the Su family. To put it bluntly, they were like side branches. As a collateral descendant, she naturally had to be controlled by the direct descendants. The direct descendants of the Su family probably knew that Su Ling was about to become a supernatural expert, so they treated her as a tool and wanted to marry into another family. Zhou Hao had never expected this to happen to Su Ling. Ever since I was young, I have always cultivated diligently in order to change my fate. When I was in school, I always wanted to get first place in every test. I wanted to work hard. When I started cultivating as a martial artist, I also worked hard to break through. Everything I did was so that I could dominate my own fate. But now, I realize that all my efforts were actually for the sake of protecting a person I don't like in the near future. Not only do I have to protect him, but I also have to call him husband, give birth to children for him, and take care of his daily life. I'm unwilling to accept this. I'm not a tool. I'm just me. I want to live like I want to. Su Ling pounced into Zhou Hao's arms and couldn't help but sob. Zhou Hao's heart ached incomparably. He took a deep breath and looked at Su Ling. He immediately said, "Su Ling, don't worry. I won't let this happen. I definitely won't. If the supernatural experts won't let the Su family treat me seriously, then I'll reach the heaven realm. If I can't reach the heaven realm, then I'll reach the 12th grade heaven realm. One day, I'll personally go to the Su family's door and get them to marry you to me." At this moment, Zhou Hao clenched his fists tightly, his expression firm. When Su Ling heard this, her delicate body trembled. She looked up and was already covered in tears. She looked at Zhou Hao with an infatuated, touched, and even palpitating expression. She kissed him lightly and their lips met. Immediately, a fire erupted. However, Su Ling only kissed Zhou Hao lightly and rushed out the door. Looking at Su Ling's sad figure depart, Zhou Hao finally had an endless desire for strength. Ever since he became a quasi-heaven realm expert, he had relaxed a lot. After all, he already felt that he was strong enough. An 18-year-old quasi-heaven realm expert was enough for one to live with pride. However, at this moment, he realized that he was still thinking too simply. Some things were not up to him to decide. The Su family was very powerful, especially the direct descendants of the Su family. They were very important in the Green Cloud Division. The moment Su Ling became a supernatural expert, she would naturally be arranged by her family to stay behind. After becoming a special envoy of the Jiangnan region, the Su family would finally arrange for her to marry a descendant of a big family to live a peaceful life in the Jiangnan region. This was what the Su family wanted. Not only could this consolidate the strength behind them, but it could also allow them to develop alliances with other families. This was the best choice for any big family. However, Zhou Hao would definitely not allow it. Su Ling was his woman and he would not let such a thing happen. One day, I will personally come to the Su family and force open the doors. I will let everyone in the Su family fear me and marry Su Ling. I will also make them not dare to force Su Ling to do anything. Zhou Hao swore in his heart. On this day, Zhou Hao yearning for strength had been multiplied. Chapter 417, Two Supernatural Experts. Zhou Hao now understood why Su Ling did not want to break through after so long. It was not that she did not want to, but she was unwilling. This was because she knew her fate. She knew that after breaking through, she would have to obey the arrangements of her family. This was what Su Ling did not want to see happen. Zhou Hao felt as if a knife was being twisted in his heart as he swore in his heart. The matter in the Red Cliff Abyss became more and more intense. Although the intelligent entity from outer space was no longer around, Zhou Hao could still sense the conflicts in the Red Cliff Abyss. In the end, the Zhou family's matter was like a fuse that made the already dangerous Red Cliff Abyss even more dangerous. However, to Zhou Hao, this Red Cliff Abyss was nothing to be afraid of. On this day, Zhou Hao was cultivating. He had already reached 70% in body tempering and was only 30% away from perfection. Once his body tempering ended successfully, he would be able to break through to the heaven realm. As Zhou Hao was cultivating, he suddenly sensed a strange fluctuation. The fluctuation was very strange, making Zhou Hao stunned for a moment. In the next second, Yin Feng and the other two rushed over. Commander Zhou, not good. Many mysterious mutated beasts have appeared in the Red Cliff Abyss. They're attacking the depths of the Red Cliff Abyss. Yin Feng and the others were very anxious, making Zhou Hao stunned for a moment. Without saying a word, he directly headed over. Su Ling and the others also followed behind. The group arrived at the Red Cliff Abyss directly. Looking from afar, they saw a dense crowd of mutated beasts covering the sky and the earth. Although their cultivation level was not high and they only had a few supernatural experts, such a huge crowd was still shocking. What's going on? Why are the foreign races suddenly attacking this place? Zhou Hao frowned and wondered if it was related to the intelligent entity from outer space. However, there was nothing he could do now. He could only accept the challenge. I'm afraid we won't be able to resolve so many mutated beasts with just us. I've already met the few factions in the Red Cliff Abyss. I wonder if they'll take action. Yin Feng said. Once this place was occupied by these mutated beasts, they would have no place to stay. Therefore, the native factions of the Red Cliff Abyss would attack no matter what. Forget it, let's deal with those supernatural beasts first. Zhou Hao suddenly said. Hearing this, Yin Feng was stunned for a moment and could not help but say, "What, we only have 3 supernatural experts? We can't beat the 7 supernatural beasts at all." Yin Feng was somewhat surprised, not knowing why Zhou Hao had suddenly gone crazy. However, Zhou Hao smiled. Who said it will only be the 3 of you? We have 5 supernatural experts, after all. As Zhou Hao spoke, he looked at Su Ling. A few days ago, Zhou Hao had sensed that Su Ling had already broken through. Su Ling could only unleash her ice muscle body to the limit after breaking through to the supernatural level. Although she was only a first-grade supernatural expert, her combat strength was definitely not inferior to a second or third grade. As for Zhou Hao, there was no need to mention him. 5? Where are those 2? Yin Feng was stunned for a moment. He looked around and could not find them at all. Even Yuan Cheng and the others were puzzled. Where did he get the number 5 from? However, at this moment, Yun Yan and Fang Yu's eyes widened. They looked at Zhou Hao and Su Ling in disbelief and exclaimed, "Could it be the 2 of you have broken through?" As a girl, Yun Yan was still the most meticulous and immediately knew what Zhou Hao was thinking. Zhou Hao smiled and looked at Su Ling with a gentle expression. Su Ling also smiled. She was really happy to see Zhou Hao break through to the supernatural level. She also knew that Zhou Hao was working so hard because of her. This feeling made her very satisfied, but at the same time, she was also worried. You, the 2 of you? Yin Feng was extremely frightened. How long had it been? In just a few months after arriving in the 100 City, they had already broken through to the supernatural level. It had to be known that when they were still Grandmasters, they had spent 3 to 4 years to break through to the supernatural level. Zhou Hao and Su Ling stood together as their supernatural auras erupted. Su Ling's body was incomparably cold as she emitted waves of white mist. She was like a fairy that had descended from the sky and was incomparably beautiful. The ice muscle body was a special physique to begin with. At this moment, with Su Ling's supernatural cultivation, she could even unleash this physique to its full potential. As for Zhou Hao, only his aura was supernatural and they did not sense anything else. However, they all knew that Zhou Hao was the strongest among them. After all, he was capable of killing Grand Master level mutated beasts when he was still a master. Even the bystanders were shocked by his abnormal combat strength. Alright, don't waste time. Use your full strength. As long as we kill these 7 supernatural beasts, it won't be a problem. As Zhou Hao spoke, he directly attacked. Without saying a word, he took the lead and took out his long saber. To the outside world, his Shadow 7 sabers was his true strength. Immediately, his saber intent wreaked havoc and was incomparably powerful. Countless saber shadows spread out. The aura was so powerful that it shocked Yin Feng and the others. Did he just break through to the supernatural level? I'm afraid even a second-grade supernatural expert can't unleash such combat strength. And this saber technique is even more extraordinary. Even a third-grade supernatural expert might not be able to escape unscathed. This was what Yin Feng, Hua Manlu, and Tu Shan were all thinking. They were discovering more and more that this Zhou Hao was really abnormal. Not only was he quick-witted, but his strength was also indisputable. Moreover, how old were they? They had just graduated from high school and had just reached adulthood. This was too abnormal. Zhou Hao naturally did not care about this. He looked at Su Ling. After Su Ling became a supernatural expert, she could use her ice muscle body at full strength. She did not use any other weapons. Instead, she held a long sword condensed from ice in her hand that emitted waves of coldness. As long as she waved her long sword, the surrounding air would instantly turn cold. Even the air would be frozen. It was really terrifying. Yin Feng and the other 2 each found a mutated beast. As for Su Ling, she waved her sword and an incomparably cold aura enveloped 2 of them. As for Zhou Hao, he was the same. He had directly locked onto 2 supernatural beasts with his saber shadows. The war was about to start. Although Zhou Hao tried his best to control it, Zhou Hao had already cultivated the Shadow 7 sabers to the limit. The strength of this cultivation technique was directly displayed. Zhou Hao's saber shadow slashed down, and the 2 mutated beasts were instantly killed without being able to resist. As for Su Ling, although did kill them instantly, she was not far off. In the cold aura that spread out, she directly froze the 2 mutated beasts. She waved her ice sword and immediately turned the 2 mutated beasts into ice. On the battlefield, 4 supernatural mutated beasts were immediately dealt with. This scene immediately stunned Yuan Cheng and the others. In the end, the most important thing was that the mutated beasts were killed by their companions. These guys are too damn powerful. Yuan Cheng was dumbfounded and could not help but curse. Chapter 418, Powerful Mutated Beast. They were shocked, and Yin Feng and the other 2 were even more so. They were still fighting bitterly with the mutated beast, but Zhou Hao and the others had already killed 2 of them instantly. What kind of concept was that? In other words, even the 3 of them combined might not be a match for Su Ling and Zhou Hao. They were third-grade supernatural experts. These 2 had just broken through to the supernatural level not long ago. This was too freaking monstrous. In fact, this was not because she was a demon, but because Su Ling's physique was special. The ice muscle body was a precious physique that was hard to come by in 100 years and was naturally very powerful. As a quasi-heaven realm expert, Zhou Hao could resist a heaven realm expert. Naturally, Zhou Hao could easily kill a few mere supernatural experts. After Zhou Hao and the others finished off the 4 mutated beasts, they helped Yin Feng and the others. The battlefield instantly ended. The 7 supernatural beasts were directly defeated and turned into corpses that landed on the ground. Zhou Hao looked at his luck points and felt very helpless. It seemed that the loot of this supernatural beast was really not enough. If other people knew about this, they would definitely be furious. Even supernatural beasts were not enough to fill the gaps of his teeth. Only Zhou Hao could say something like this. Zhou Hao felt that it was very strange to deal with these mutated beasts. Logically speaking, if they wanted to attack this place, they shouldn't have only sent a few supernatural beasts. If they really wanted to occupy the Red Cliff Abyss, they should have sent quasi-heaven realm experts. That would have been the safest plan. However, for some reason, Zhou Hao felt that something was wrong. Was this a test? Soon, as Zhou Hao and the others were thinking, the people from the Red Cliff Abyss also arrived. However, Zhou Kangdao was absent. Instead, he saw Commander An, President Sun, and Senior Qian. The three of them flew over from the sky and were stunned when they saw the 7 supernatural corpses on the ground. Dead? A total of 7 supernatural beasts died. What's going on? Could it be Yinfeng and the other 2? Impossible. Yinfeng and the other 2 are about the same strength as us. They can't handle 7 of them at all. Then what happened? The 3 of them looked at each other in surprise and sped over, landing beside Zhou Hao and the others. At this moment, the 3 of them finally understood why. The supernatural auras emitted by Zhou Hao and Su Ling in front of him were extremely powerful. Although he could sense that they had just broken through, this aura was indeed that of a supernatural expert. They broke through? They actually broke through. Yinfeng and the other 2 were stunned and did not dare to believe what they were seeing. This situation was really unbelievable. After all, it hasn't been long since they broke through and became supernatural experts. Congratulations, Commander Zhou and Commander Su. Commander An and the others immediately smiled. They no longer looked high and mighty. Back then, although they knew that Zhou Hao and the others were from the Green Cloud Division, they still did not take them seriously. They only acted respectful on the surface. After all, he was only a grandmaster and was just an ant. They did not care at all. However, now that these 2 had broken through to the supernatural level, things were different. Now that they had the same strength as them, they naturally had to look at them as equals. It was even to the extent that they were even more afraid of Zhou Hao and Su Ling at this moment. Not only were these 2 supernatural experts, but they were also members of the Green Cloud Division. This was enough for them to swallow their pride. Commander An, thank you. However, I want to know what's going on with this beast wave attack. Why did it suddenly attack this place? Zhou Hao looked at Commander An and the other 2 and could not help but ask. This we're not too sure either. This matter was a little sudden, and we didn't have the time to investigate. Commander An and the other 2 hurriedly said. Oh, right, didn't anyone from the Zhou family come over? Zhou Hao looked at the 3 of them. Zhou Kangdao did not come, and even Zhou Kang's wife did not come. As supernatural experts of the Red Cliff Abyss, they should know that once the Red Cliff Abyss was occupied by the mutated beasts, they would have no place to live. However, they did not come over or care about what was going on. Well, we're also not sure. We've already sent someone to tell them the news, but the Zhou family were closed the entire time. At this moment, Senior Qian frowned and took a deep breath before speaking slowly. Oh? Is that right? What exactly is going on? Zhou Hao was very puzzled. Logically speaking, the Zhou family shouldn't be like this. We're not sure either. Perhaps the Zhou family doesn't care. Commander An suddenly said. The few of them had many secrets. Moreover, Zhou Hao could not tell who among them had taken the energy body. Moreover, Zhou King did not show up today, making Zhou Hao have a bad feeling. The intelligent entity in outer space had already been sealed. Little Yu was devouring it, so Zhou Kangdao probably could not contact it. If he still wanted to take revenge, the best way to do it would still be to work together with others. And at this moment, their best ally was the foreign races. Zhou Hao narrowed his eyes, looked at the beast group, and took a deep breath. Could it be because of Zhou Kangdao? Zhou Hao did not want to think this way, but for some reason, he sensed that this might be the case. If Zhou Kangdao really did this, Zhou Hao would definitely not tolerate it. A person who was working with an outsider for his own benefit was really detestable. Moreover, the people of the Red Cliff Abyss were not good people to begin with. The reason why the Green Cloud Division did not deal with them was because of this outer space intelligent entity. Zhou Hao did not want to be involved because he did not know what was going on. Therefore, he did not intend to interfere. He had already broken through to the supernatural level, and it should not be long before he would get reassigned. Perhaps Su Ling was the same. Zhou Hao looked into the depths and said indifferently, "I'm going to take a look. Do you guys want to go together?" At this moment, Zhou Hao suddenly said. As soon as he finished speaking, Commander An and the others' expressions changed drastically. "Commander Zhou, you can't enter the depths of the Red Cliff Abyss." After saying this, Zhou Hao was stunned for a moment and asked curiously, "What's wrong? Is it very dangerous inside?" "That's right, it's very dangerous. In the depths of the Red Cliff Abyss, it's a forbidden area. No one who enters comes out alive. Therefore, it's best if you don't go," Senior Qian hurriedly said. From his tone, it seemed that he knew something about it. "Senior Qian, can you tell me what you know?" Zhou Hao asked directly. Senior Qian had a difficult expression. However, Commander An and the others took a deep breath and could not help but say, "Since Commander Zhou wants to know, it's not good for us to keep it from him. Moreover, this matter is not a huge secret. There is a very powerful mutated beast imprisoned in the depths of the Red Cliff Abyss. It has probably reached the 12th grade Heaven Realm." Chapter 419, Azure Dragon King. Hearing this, Zhou Hao was immediately stunned. There was actually a 12th grade Heaven Realm expert in the forbidden area. This was too unbelievable. Why is a 12th grade Heaven Realm beast imprisoned there? What's going on? Zhou Hao asked directly in surprise. "This we don't know why that mutated beast was imprisoned there either. This is a mystery. Originally, we didn't believe it either, but we were lucky to have seen it once when we went to the depths of the Red Cliff Abyss. That's a huge mutated beast that covers the sky and sun. Although it's hidden in the clouds, its huge aura is so oppressive that we couldn't move in front of it. His body is tied with chains. I don't know why or who's suppressing him here, but we can sense that if we approach him, we'll definitely die." Commander An and the others told him everything they knew. When Zhou Hao heard this, he was also extremely shocked. An imprisoned mutated beast. Could this be done by humans? Why didn't they kill it? Zhou Hao was somewhat surprised and puzzled. However, these words made Zhou Hao even more curious. Zhou Hao still wanted to take a look at this 12th grade Heaven Realm beast. Alright, in that case, forget it. Zhou Hao looked at the beast group below. The supernatural beasts had all been killed, and the beast wave attack had also retreated as if it did not exist. Zhou Hao frowned and felt that something was wrong. However, he could not tell what was wrong. He could only think of another way. After the beast group retreated, they also returned. However, at night, Zhou Hao still changed into the 1000 feather armor and headed straight for the depths of the Red Cliff Abyss. "Boy, you're really bold. You actually dare to visit a 12th grade Heaven Realm beast. I think you don't want to live anymore, right?" Murongxuan's voice sounded in Zhou Hao's mind. Recently, he had not shown up at all. It was not because he did not want to, but because he was not interested at all. After all, these were just a group of supernatural experts. Zhou Hao was definitely not in any danger, so he could not be bothered to come out. He was not interested in anything below the Heaven Realm. "Don't you think I know how to run? Do you think I'm a fool?" Zhou Hao felt helpless. Every time, this Murongxuan would jump out and say something like this. It made him furious. "Humph, do you really think you can outrun a 12th grade Heaven Realm expert?" Murongxuan snorted coldly. "Then I'll just take a look from afar." How about that? Zhou Hao felt uneasy if he did not take a look, so he said. Up to you. I don't have time to care. As soon as Murongxun finished speaking, he vanished. Of course, he did not stay idle. Instead, he cultivated Genesis runes. His Genesis rune level was still extraordinary, but he was still a spirit and could not use his cultivation. If he had a physical body, he would probably be no weaker than Zhou Hao. Zhou Hao had not dared to use any Genesis runes recently. This power was too strange. Once he used it, someone would discover it. Therefore, it was better for him not to use it. However, it had to be said that the power of Genesis runes was truly terrifying to the extreme. With his quasi-heaven realm cultivation, he would probably be able to fight a first or second grade heaven realm expert if he used a Genesis rune. After all, that power did not seem to belong to this world. What is this Genesis rune? Zhou Hao had always been curious, but even so, he did not dare to investigate this matter and could only endure it. Soon, Zhou Hao arrived at the place. It was a huge desert, in the middle of a huge cliff. This cliff was bottomless and filled with black mist. This black mist seemed to be connected to the horizon. Looking at it, it was very powerful. Zhou Hao stopped and did not dare to move forward. He could sense an extremely powerful force in the depths of the cliff. That power made his heart palpitate. Even though he felt it from afar, he could still sense the pressure. Is this the strength of a 12th grade heaven realm expert? It's indeed terrifying. Zhou Hao took a deep breath and was secretly shocked. This red cliff abyss was very huge, so huge that even Zhou Hao did not know exactly how big it was. In fact, this red cliff abyss was even much larger than a single spatial rift. There were many such huge cliffs on planet Earth. There were even rumors that there were oases deeper in. However, no one would dare to explore this place. Zhou Hao did not dare to either. The other party was a 12th grade heaven realm expert. Zhou Hao was really worried that he would discover him and attack him. This is the aura of the Azure Dragon King. Murongxun's expression immediately changed drastically and he could not help but exclaim. Azure Dragon King? What do you mean? Do you know him? Zhou Hao could not help but ask. Of course, this is an old monster. It's said that he has existed for at least 1,000 years. I originally thought that he was dead, but I didn't expect him to be imprisoned here. What is this red cliff abyss? Why are there so many strange places here? Murongxun was shocked. After saying this, Zhou Hao was also surprised. He did not expect this mutated beast to have survived for so many years. Brother Murong, what's going on? Tell me. Zhou Hao was really curious and could not help but ask. Murongxun snorted coldly. Fortunately, this is the Azure Dragon King. If it were anyone else, you would have died long ago. After saying this, Zhou Hao was surprised. What? Could it be that this mutated beast didn't attack humans? Brother, what do you mean? I still don't understand. Zhou Hao said. You don't even understand? The Azure Dragon King doesn't have that much hostility towards humans. Moreover, he has a special identity that you probably don't know. After saying this, Zhou Hao was stunned for a moment and could not help but ask, Identity? What identity? He was the mount of that expert from back then, the first Genesis rune master who later disappeared. After Murongxun finished speaking, Zhou Hao was dumbfounded. Damn! Zhou Hao cursed. This Azure Dragon King was actually a human mount? How ridiculous! A Heaven Realm 12th grade mutated beast was actually a human mount. Anyone who heard this would be shocked. Although it's indeed unbelievable, this is the truth. This mutated beast is that big shot's mount. I originally thought that he was dead, but he's actually here. Murongxun was extremely excited, and then he spoke. Perhaps he knows the secret of the Genesis rune. Quick, let's go in. Murongxun immediately said, making Zhou Hao's face turn black. You were the one who said just now that it was too dangerous. Don't you think it's a little rude to enter now? Or are things different because the Genesis rune is now involved? Zhou Hao frowned. He kept feeling that Murongxun was a little too anxious. What can we do? Don't worry, the Azure Dragon King won't hurt us. I can guarantee it. Murongxun said directly, his tone extremely confident. Zhou Hao thought for a moment and was somewhat hesitant. However, he still nodded when he thought of the secret of the Genesis rune. Alright, let's go take a look. Chapter 420, Origin. As Zhou Hao spoke, he and Murongxun walked in. This black mist was very rich and had an extremely obstructive ability. Zhou Hao put on the 1,000-feather armor and resisted this force. At the same time, he activated his gravity domain to offset it. Soon, they walked into the fog and arrived at the edge of the cliff. Looking down, Zhou Hao's expression immediately changed. Under this huge cliff, a mutated beast hidden in the black mist was circling below. Although the mist could not be seen clearly, Zhou Hao could tell that this thing was either a snake or a dragon. Of course, there did not seem to be any dragons in this world, so it had to be a snake. It's really the Azure Dragon King. I know his aura. At this moment, Murongxun became even more excited. Zhou Hao felt helpless. He looked at the huge figure below the cliff and did not know what to do. Are we going to jump down like this? Won't we be eaten as food? Zhou Hao suddenly said. Murongxun was immediately amused from anger. Are you crazy? If you jump, you'll be suppressed to death by the Azure Dragon King's aura. I really don't know what you're thinking. Zhou Hao was a little depressed by his words and could not help but say, then tell me, what should I do? Of course we should wake him up. As Murongxun spoke, he got Zhou Hao to use the power of the Genesis runes to awaken it. At this moment, the Azure Dragon King was definitely sleeping. To be honest, Zhou Hao really did not dare to wake him up. If he got annoyed, wouldn't he be dead? Don't worry, his master and we both cultivate Genesis runes. He won't deal with us. In fact, he definitely knows about Genesis runes. It's a good opportunity for us to ask. Usually, Murongxun was very timid, but at the critical moment, he was quite bold. He actually wanted him to wake the Azure Dragon King. If he woke it up, would he be killed? Zhou Hao asked curiously, but he had no choice but to do as he was told. The Genesis rune condensed into a special rune in Zhou Hao's palm and directly fell off the cliff. This aura did not have much attack power. Instead, it transmitted a kind feeling. After this aura landed, the Green Dragon King's body immediately trembled. He suddenly opened his eyes. His huge eyes were incomparably huge. Moreover, the moment he opened his eyes, the aura erupted. Zhou Hao could sense that he was alarmed by the Genesis rune aura. In the next second, his huge body suddenly soared into the sky. As he got closer, his aura became even stronger. Zhou Hao's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly controlled his cultivation to resist and even used the 9 Revolutions Overlord body art. Only this could resist his aura. A peak-level Heaven Realm being was indeed extraordinary. The huge body was very fast, and he arrived in front of Zhou Hao in the blink of an eye. His huge eyes and huge head were also revealed. Zhou Hao focused his gaze and gasped. This was an old python with dragon horns growing out of his head. Although he was huge, Zhou Hao could tell that he was thin and weak. Although his cultivation was still at the Heaven Realm, Zhou Hao could sense that the other party was not doing well. His body was indeed wrapped in chains with mysterious runes. These runes were none other than Genesis runes. Zhou Hao was shocked and did not understand. He looked at the huge mutated beast in shock, his face filled with question marks. The aura of a Genesis rune human brat, where did you obtain the Genesis rune essence and how did you cultivate it? The huge Azure Dragon King spoke, his voice rumbling like thunder. It could be seen that he was very excited and even his body trembled. Zhou Hao did not know if he was hostile, so he took half a step back. This way he could use the Golden Crow escape technique at any time. At the same time, he cupped his hands. Azure Dragon King, I learned the Genesis rune by chance and don't know anything about it. You don't know anything, that's true. You are naturally ignorant since the humans and mutated beasts hide the secret of the Genesis rune. His words revealed a sad meaning, making Zhou Hao frown. Azure Dragon King, why are you imprisoned like this? Moreover, the power that imprisoned you should also be a Genesis rune, right? Zhou Hao could sense that this power was much stronger than the Genesis rune he had used. The mysterious words on it had always had the power to restrain this great 12th heaven realm beast. This shocked Zhou Hao. Could this Genesis rune be so powerful? That's right, I am imprisoned by the power of an official Genesis rune. It is the most orthodox and ancient type of Genesis rune. The Azure Dragon King's words surprised Zhou Hao even more. What did the other party mean by this? Azure Dragon King, I came here today to learn about the Genesis rune. Please forgive me for my presumptuousness. I wonder how much you know about this Genesis rune. Could you tell me? Zhou Hao asked directly. The Azure Dragon King took a deep breath and looked at Zhou Hao. He said indifferently, you want to know about the Genesis runes? This power doesn't belong to this world. In fact, it's very dangerous. Hearing this, Zhou Hao took a deep breath and was somewhat shocked. He was still puzzled. Why did everyone say that this power was very dangerous? Why? The Azure Dragon King continued to speak. This power comes from an ancient civilization in outer space. The martial artists of that civilization are all powerful psychics. The so-called psychics use mental strength to control all objects. And mental strength is originally an illusionary thing. Although it exists, it comes from the soul and the consciousness. Moreover, it's usually very weak and it's hard to use it in battle. Therefore, that civilization inherited the power of runes from their ancestors. After that, they turned it into Genesis runes. The Azure Dragon King's words shocked Zhou Hao, but it was still acceptable. After all, ever since he learned from the Heaven Dao software that planet Earth belonged to Universe 7, Zhou Hao had been desensitized to shock. Moreover, the 1,000 feather armor did not belong to this world, and the so-called Red Cliff King from the Red Cliff Abyss also did not belong to this world. Therefore, he was not too taken aback. Therefore, when he heard the Azure Dragon King's words, he was not afraid at all. That civilization was born violent and almost destroyed the entire universe. Although they were eventually wiped out, a few of them still survived. As their Genesis rune power is inherited from an ancient secret technique, it was fought over by the various large factions. After all, the power of Genesis runes is too terrifying. With Genesis runes, you can break past the limit of martial strength. As for how this ancient civilization invented this Genesis rune, this is a mystery. There are even prophets who prophesied that if this secret is known, the entire universe will be informed.